Hey friend, I am someone that hates routine. I oppose it in almost all areas of my life, but there is no denying that when I have a solid morning routine, it sets me up for every other aspect of my life. So in this video, I want to walk you through what does my morning routine look like right now, living in the van on a solo road trip, and then also answer a bunch of questions that I've been getting in the comments of my videos and also on Instagram. Let's just jump into it. I try to go to bed between 9:30 and 10:30, so that way my body can naturally wake up sometime between 6:30 and 7. I have an alarm set for 8:30 just in case I sleep in. The first thing I normally do when I wake up is just pour a glass of water. I put on my Apple Watch, which helps me guide through and track my habits in the morning, and I leave my phone on the table. Normally I find a camp spot late at night, so it's fun getting to see all its beauty in the morning. The appliances we use in our van are almost exclusively electric. With 400 amp hours of lithium batteries and 650 watts of solar, we are set to go. At this point, I normally put on my Bose noise canceling headphones. Hey Siri, play Ocean Waves for 15 minutes. For me, I've always seen the value in different meditation practices and silence routines, but it's just very difficult for me to have a system that I use repeatedly. So I've kind of settled on just turning on a wave soundtrack and trying to take myself through this process of silencing my mind. And it's not just about not thinking thoughts, but experiencing the thoughts and letting them just float past me and observe them. This is something that I need a lot more practice at, but truthfully, just being able to sit down in the morning, not doing anything, and just be silent, for me, this is just super helpful to start off the day. When I start to get a little antsy, I pull out a book. Currently, I'm reading The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, but I tend not to read too much in the morning, maybe 5 to 10 minutes at most. Now we move on to the writing stage of my morning. I've got this mechanical Bluetooth keyboard, which is super satisfying to type on, and I type into my iPad because it makes it more difficult to get distracted with jumping into editing or checking emails, one app at one time. The app I use for writing first is my Day One journaling app. I've been using this for about 4 years, and it's really nice having my back catalog of journal entries. Currently in February, I've been doing a habit of writing one sentence of gratitude in the morning. That's it, just one sentence. I try not to overburden myself with needing to do this big productive writing session. Normally though, when I do sit down and start writing, it seems more effortless to just dive into writing more. So then I'll share some thoughts on my last day and maybe what I want today to be like. James Clear, who's an author I really respect, who wrote a book on habits, has said this about writing, where you don't write to document your thoughts, you write to find out your thoughts. And I can't stress how helpful this is for rearranging and start to get clarity on what's all jumbling around in my brain. I use Day One for the journaling side of things, and then I jump over into IA Writer when I'm working on various scripts for videos or whatever else it is that I'm currently working on writing. Next, we move on to the planning stage of my day. So I rely heavily on using my iPad to organize and keep track of my digital life. And the app that I primarily use for this is called OmniFocus. This is an app that's built to utilize the Levi Allen Getting Things Done system. And I use it in conjunction with a paper notebook. So I refer to the digital app to write down the various projects or to-do lists that I'm going to be focusing on today. Now, this translation from digital to physical is super helpful to make real what it is that I'm actually trying to accomplish today. Remind me at 2:30 today to email Scott about an I try to keep my to-do lists as simple as possible. I do a section up top for small, generic items that I can do pretty quickly, and then I do a section for projects beneath that. Throughout my morning, I'm using my Apple Watch to kind of manage and guide me. So I've got this task manager complication here where I can go in and check off items that I've completed. And then I've got this habit tracker called Streaks where I can go in and select the habits that I've completed for that day and get a streak going. Trust me, this is super addicting and you don't want to lose your streak. At this point, my day is roughly planned. I've done some writing and now it's time to go into my first work block, which usually means editing. I put up a window screen so that way the glare on my laptop is as minimized as possible. I plug in my laptop to the USB power source and also sometimes to my 36 terabyte editing RAID. When I'm editing, I like to use the Pomodoro technique so that way there's small completable blocks one step at a time. And so I use this app called Focus Time, which I can start on my watch and see there visibly for 25-minute chunks. And when each 25-minute chunk is over, it chimes on my wrist and I can take a little 2-minute break and then get right back into a 25-minute chunk. I usually try to complete 3 to 4 of these focus blocks right away early in the morning. A big thing that I spend a lot of my time on is editing for both my own videos and for clients. And as I'm making progress on various different edits that I'm working on, I get to physically check them off, which is super rewarding. So I'll take my Bluetooth headphones off, turn on this awesome little Bluetooth speaker that I have, get some music going, and then it's time to prepare breakfast. As a reward for finishing my first work block of the day, I pull up my phone, just seeing generic notifications and what's going on in the land of the internet. For breakfast, I like to make bacon and eggs with toast or oatmeal. I try to keep it simple and rotate between those two simple breakfasts. And that is my morning routine. And when I first noticed the true power of routine for me was back 5 years ago when I had originally moved into this van. It was just a cargo van, an empty shell. I was sleeping on a mattress in the back. I didn't have tons of extras. But with all that like consumerism and all the material things that I owned, when those were eliminated from my life and off in storage and I just had the simple necessities, I started to realize how powerful it was to eliminate all the decisions that I was normally making in a day. And there's only a couple decisions to make, which at that time was, hey, wake up, get a little food in me, and then hop on my bike, go into the downtown studio and start doing my work. And so my routine at that time was incredibly simple, but what I started to notice was I really appreciated those bike rides into the downtown area because it allowed me to clear my head and start to refocus of what is most important to me in my life right now and how can I make sure I'm moving towards that instead of just dealing with the most immediate stuff. I love change. I love chaos. I love the unknown and just, the excitement that comes from a new adventure. And as a creative and someone who does a lot of work that comes from thinking and thoughts where I have to sit down and edit and write and respond to emails, I'm always in this tension back and forth between structured lifestyle that actually enables me to do my work and then the chaos that kind of just gives me all my energy and gets my juices flowing and coming up with the next ideas. So I would say on a whole, I'm operating in my routine. Maybe if I'm truthfully being honest, it's about a third of the time. But that 1/3 that I'm actually operating within my routine makes a massive difference to the holistic nature of actually getting things accomplished and getting it done. Because as much as I like to say I can just sit down and work whenever I want, getting my brain to focus is by far the biggest challenge that I face between me and where I want to take my life. And that's no understatement. Since I was about 15 years old, I've been at full-on war with getting myself to be disciplined and focused. And the simplest things as far as writing down a to-do list and then actually doing the items on the to-do list, that very practice has eluded me most of my teenage and young adult life. And I found what helps remove most of the obstacles is when I can stay within a routine that helps me and doesn't make me feel shame and guilt for not being able to be a better person. And what I mean by that is in the past, I used to add on all these things like drink this kale smoothie, go outside, do a push-up routine, there's so many complicated natures that the second that I threw off one of those elements, everything would derail and I wouldn't follow it. And then it'd basically be the opposite end of the spectrum where I would be just living off impulse with what's in front of me first, what's the most urgent. And as we know, when you just focus on the most urgent and you're reacting to your environment, you're not able to think long term and actually get projects done that are important to you but not urgent. So when I look at my morning routine in general, the most important battle is that first moment when I wake up and I've got that impulse to check my phone. That to me is the defining moment of my day. If I can hold myself accountable and if I can exercise self-control and not check the phone, that's a good sign that we're heading in a great direction. And I rely heavily on the technology in my life. It's like my digital brain. So it helps me be organized and not forget stuff because I'm incredibly forgetful. So usually in a day, there's about 6 to 12 times where I'm talking to the Siri on my watch, asking to time-based reminder. Okay, so in an hour, remind me to do this. Create a reminder to do that. And using Siri to talk to my watch is honestly a game changer for my brain because it relieves that stress of being worried that I forget stuff. And because it's got smart reminders on here and calendar features, it will buzz and vibrate when my next appointment is, when my next calendar event is, if I have something that's due today. So no notifications come to my watch that are social based. No Twitter, no email, nothing. No, I don't want this watch buzzing unless it's something to signal to my brain, hey, you've got to remember to do something. So that way, when my watch is actually notifying me of something, I know it's something for the scheduling of my life. I'm going to dive into more questions here in a moment, and boy, was there a lot of them, but I wanted to take a quick break to tell you about the sponsor of this video, and that is our friends over at Squarespace. If you've never built a website before and you've been thinking about doing it and maybe you've been intimidated thinking, there's all these different services I have to use and it's going to be really complicated, or maybe I need to hire a web developer and it's going to cost thousands of dollars and maybe it's just more work than it's worth. Well, if that's you, then I highly recommend checking out Squarespace because they've made it super simple with their all-in-one platform for getting a beautiful website up and running within moments. And they've got, you might think this means that you have to sacrifice, maybe it doesn't look as good, or maybe there's some features that you can't implement. I think you'd be very surprised about the robust feature set that they have built into their platform, where you can get an online store up and running, you can accept payments from your customers, you've got advanced scheduling functionality, and the best part is that you don't need any experience to get started. So I recommend heading over and just start building a site for free. Use a trial, just see what it looks like. Don't let any excuses stop you. And when you're ready to commit, make sure that you use my code for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I've been screenshotting some comments on some of my latest videos, especially the winter storm video. A ton of new people stumbled into my channel from that video. So there's a lot of questions, and I'll answer some of those to just get you up to speed on some of the things going on here, but then also answer a bunch of the questions that I got over on Instagram. So let's just jump into this. A question that I actually got a bunch of on the winter storm video is people were very thrown off that we had food next to our toilet. Our toilet is right in the back bench there, and I really just skimmed through on the tour. But something that I think most people don't know about that toilet is that it's a sit-down separating toilet and it's all sealed. So unless you're somehow doing explosive related body stuff, it's contained. So there's a compartment next to it, but there's like a plywood sealed divider in between the two. So I know the visual of doing a pan shot where it shows, hey, there's some canned goods sitting next to our toilet. I know the visual of that isn't fantastic, but that's just the nature of being in a small space. And so I wanted our canned goods, we don't need to access those as regularly. So where can we store those? And the compartment next to the toilet was a pretty convenient area. Jonah says, love the build. Planning on doing a very similar build. What measurements do you have in your car? How long and width is it on the inside? Well, it's a van, and it's just about 6'2", 6'1" inside from floor to ceiling. It's 5.5 feet wide, and then the cabin area is 14 feet long. Who is we? Is he living in the van with someone else? Yeah, I have a wife and we live in this van together. Her job right now, she's on a work trip. I'm on a van trip down south. So that's just our life. It's a little crazy sometimes. I don't always have her in the YouTube videos because she didn't ask to start a YouTube channel, and it's kind of something that I've dragged into our marriage. She enjoys being in some videos, and truthfully, I love having someone else to film, but yeah, I've got a wife. She comes with me on a lot of my adventures. We don't film everything. Hey man, I was wondering if you have a 4x4 T1M. I want to take my conversion up to ski resorts, but I'm apprehensive since it's 2-wheel drive. Maybe you could recommend those chains. So the chains I have were the Z6, Super Z6. You can check out the link. I'll put it down below. But what model of van do I have? A bunch of people were asking that. It's a 2004 Dodge Sprinter 2500. So the Dodge Sprinter is actually a Mercedes Sprinter, so all the part numbers inside are Mercedes parts. It was like an importing agreement, something or other. It's the longest wheelbase, the 158, the high roof, and it's two-wheel drive. So it doesn't do amazing off-road, but I make by. The 4x4s were just way too expensive, and there wasn't many in North America. I could have maybe imported one now, which is maybe something I would consider in the future, but a bunch of people are actually asking why I don't have the newer model of van, and truth is because I couldn't afford it. So I bought this van 5 years ago, and it's what I could barely afford at the time, and I spent all the money on the van and had no money for the conversion. So it took us another 3.5, 4 years to save up enough money to actually do the build that you see behind me. And you do not need something like this to get started. Like when I was first in this van, it was a metal shell, and I lived in it like that for over half a year. Love the van. Curious if you ever weighed it with everything after you got it done. We're right at around 8,000 pounds fully loaded. So we're a heavy, chunky boy. It's a big, heavy van. A lot of weight. Heading over to the Instagrams. Is the portable toilet that useful? Yes, especially for my wife, where anatomically, our anatomy is different. What is the best first thing to research if you're interested in van life? Actually trying it. Renting a van, borrowing a van, seeing what you think about multiple weeks on a time in a van, because there's a lot of people that have dumped thousands and thousands of dollars, months of time into a van build only to realize they don't actually enjoy having it be their only place of residence. Are you still filming on the GH5? That I am. Still filming on the GH5. I did, however, just pre-order a new camera that is the first one that I pre-ordered since these guys, however long ago that was. So I'm excited to try that out. I'll tell you more when it comes in. What are you doing for an electrical power supply? And then there's one electricity, big data storage for a filmmaker, photographer. There's a bunch of electrical questions. And so we've got, again, the 400 amp hour battery bank and solar on the roof. So we don't run out of power. It's pretty convenient. Household outlets everywhere in here. It's pretty luxurious. And then for hard drive stuff, I've got my editing travel RAID. It's a G Shuttle XL. It's got 36 terabytes. That's it's a RAID, so it can read the data faster and store a lot of it. And then I have backup drives that I ship places and all that kind of stuff. What is the biggest sacrifice you have to make that you didn't think of? I think community. That's kind of the balance, right? Because we're in the van, we can go to people and see them in person, but it is an isolating lifestyle to be nomadic on the road on your own, always in new places. So maybe that was something that we anticipated beforehand, but didn't know what it would truly feel like to be in it. Brendan Hallboom, he asked a couple questions. He's attended workshops, great guy, big supporter of the channel. What is a good budget to start converting a van, a good place, or a simple goal? If you're trying to do a build out that has power, water, those kinds of things, I would look at north of 15 grand. That's depending on if you want to do the work yourself or not. If you're hiring someone else, it gets much more expensive than that. But just start thinking big numbers, because it's gonna cost a lot. Every piece adds up. Again, you can do simple, scrappy builds. No one's forcing you to go fancy, but definitely north of 15 grand and a really nice build, like up to 30, depending on how much power, components, and things like that you want. So sometimes people spend too much on the van first and don't have enough to finish building it out. But then the trade-off is, if you're having van issues, like I am on this trip, you can't drive as far. So there's always this push and pull. It would be great if we just had endless supplies of money. Felicia asks, do you ever get worried leaving everything you own in the van when you're not in it? That is my biggest worry. That is the thing that's on my mind the most as far as stress, nervousness, anxiety with the van. So every time I leave it with my stuff inside, I know that someone could just smash a window and make my week, my month, my year a lot worse. Felicia also asks, do you plan on having a home base again anytime soon, or purely on the road? Yeah, we would love to have a home base again soon, but it was which one comes first, the home base then travel, or the travel then home base? We had a basement suite and studio that we were renting from some friends for a while there. That's where we built the van out of. We don't know what our next setup will look like. Part of that has to do with how on the ball I am with business development and the capital we have to do interesting decisions with. But yeah, I would love to buy a property and have a barn and do some unconventional shipping container thing. Like, I would love to do that and just build the next off the grid wild idea, but truthfully, that stuff like that just takes a lot of capital. So we're trying to figure that out, but we would love to get in a new home base probably within a year-ish. We aren't really too sure on that. We're certainly not committed to only being in the van all the time, forever, ever, that kind of thing. So Travis asks, is there any large impact upgrade you're still hoping to do yet but haven't done? Suspension. So I bought suspension parts in a lift kit months ago and we still haven't installed it. Suspension was thousands of dollars, but it's going to make a difference to ride quality because the van is heavier now and riding off-road with it is pretty bumpy. So that is an upgrade that I'm anticipating that I think will make a big difference. My friend Max with Trailbound Sketches asks, is it possible to create content without being addicted to the views? I would say for most of us mere mortals, probably not. But what gradient of addictedness to what does that even mean as far as being addicted to the views? Probably how I would reframe that is almost, is it possible to create content without being always aware of how videos are doing performance-wise? For me, the answer has been no. My biggest motivating factor isn't having a video pop off or get tons of views. Otherwise, I would be probably making different types of content. But that is an exercise that I'm always asking myself with each new video that I make for the platform of YouTube. When you're putting stuff out there, you are hoping that people will find it and see it. That's why I spend so much time on the editing. It's why I pour over trying to make videos as interesting as I can at that time. So am I making the videos purely for that metric? No, absolutely not. I've had a lot of videos that I've made where I've known going into it, this video will not do performance-wise very well, but I want to make it. So that to me is an important balance where making things that as soon as your headspace is, if this video does not do well, I'm going to be emotionally thrown off and upset, or maybe you have a really bad several months in a row because you don't have a video that performs well. And that, I think in that headspace, which I've experienced that before, it's not great. So trying to figure out where are some wins, like what is your priority when you're making this stuff? For me, it's being able to create something that connects with a viewer, and that's kind of my goal. So the view count is less important to hearing back from people if they appreciated the experience of watching it, if it was a conversation starter. So with some of the outdoor films I make, what I'm realizing is a big motivator for me, because yeah, we love good story, but what is that actually? What's a signifier that what I'm making is a good story when it's done? And for me, that means, are people having real life conversations with other human beings after watching it? As a filmmaker, that's what I'm more prioritizing, is how can I make stuff that's intriguing, that it starts conversations outside of actually just experiencing it? Because I'm not trying to create just escapism entertainment. I'm trying to make stuff that stimulates the brain and makes you feel uncomfortable and what makes you want to have a conversation with someone. So back to YouTube, that's just, I'm living within that. It's a sinusoidal wave that goes up and down, and it kind of has had more mood swinging capabilities over me at different times. But I don't think it's possible to be making stuff on the internet without just being aware of the performance. And it is really fun when a video does well, though. And when people are texting you, oh man, your video's blowing up, like that's an exciting thing. And you want to be able to celebrate that. And because you're experiencing the emotion of that positive, it's hard not to also experience the swing of, hey, that video did awful. And it's interesting because your averages climb with you as you grow on the platform. So it's all about perspective. And so I don't really have a great solution to it, but is there a way to keep making content and being grateful and being satisfied? Yes, I do think so. I don't think it's this hungry monster that always leaves you wanting more, but it always depends on what your goals are going into it. Thanks for the great question, Max. That's one that I keep asking myself over and over again. AJ's asking, is the place too small for you and your wife, especially in winter? So truthfully, in the winter, we're just sleeping in here. We're not living. It's not like you spend your whole day in here. Janelle has a job. I go out and do things. So if we were constantly trapped inside, yeah, it would get claustrophobic, but this is where we sleep. And then we go out and do life. So is it too small? No. If this was our only space forever, yeah, it would be way too small. But it's our bedroom. It's where we sleep. It's where we do meal prep. And it's just big enough for now. David, do you recommend buying a new van or a used van? If you can buy a new van, do that. If you've got enough income to do that, yeah, buy a new van. That would be awesome. I bought an old van because it's what I could afford. And even at the time, it was a lot for me. We'll close it off with one final question, and that is, would you recommend the van life? Yes. For certain people, in certain circumstances, sometimes, part of the time, depending on your life, whatever you're doing at that time, maybe, possibly, kind of, I don't know. That's going to be it for this massive Q&A. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate your support and dropping in on this video. I hope you enjoyed some moments of it. I'll catch you in the next one. And remember, life's better when you make stuff. Peace.